Welcome back. Today, we're doing a book review. I just recently finished reading The Companion from Katie Alender, and this is just the jacket because Spencer's borrowing it to read, but I was pleasantly surprised with the book. I randomly picked it up, and I enjoyed it. It's in the horror thriller genre, and it doesn't really lean too much to either direction. It's not too gory where it feels gross, and it's not too tension-packed where you feel like you're never getting anywhere. It just moves along very quickly. It follows the story of Margot, who's an orphan, and she gets brought into the home of the Suttons, a very distinguished, wealthy family, and her role becomes to be the companion of their daughter, Agatha. And that's about as much as I'm going to talk about the specific story, because obviously I don't want to ruin anything because you might read it. It's a very easy read. It's less than 500 pages and there's not a lot of words per page, so you burn through it really fast. It's pleasant in that regard because you feel like you're constantly just turning pages. I actually finished it in one day over 2 sittings. I read pretty quickly though, but it's very easy to get through. It's not as intense as far as exposition and world building as some things like Stephen King may be, so it's not as daunting as those books. It has a lot of motifs and I guess tropes and stereotypes that you would recognize from other horror pieces of content, whether it's film or books. So while you're reading it, you'll pick up on things that you're like, oh, that's a throw to this, or that's a toss to this. But it's never in a way that's you couldn't have been more creative. It's always in a very aha kind of way, which I enjoy. So whether you're already into the horror genre and you're looking for something that's kind of like a palate cleanser, it's really good. And if you're looking to get into the horror thriller genre, and you don't really know where to start, this is a good, easy, dip your toes in the dark, scary water, so to speak. It was just a very good, pleasantly unpleasant book to read. As you're kind of moving through it, you'll think one thing, you think you figured it out, and then they kind of just throw you the other direction, only to kind of bring you back. So it's nice that it constantly keeps you on your toes, it keeps moving, it's never super boring. My only real issue with it is that when it gets to, I guess, the meat and potatoes of everything, I think it moves a little too quickly through it, and that's just comparing it to the rest of the books. So in a way, the structure is really cinematic in how movies have their acts and the way they stage things, and everything kind of happens at this end point. That's really how this book is set up too. And if it was a more dense book, then we would probably get more of that. So I'd rather have the quick pacing, speed read nature of it versus a more dense exposition-based book. So while you're reading it, you never really find yourself getting bored. It constantly keeps moving, and if there's ever a point where it starts to slow down, there's a very specific reason for it, and then it just swoops you back in, which is why when I was reading it, I just couldn't put it down. I started reading it, and I was like, okay, I'm like halfway through or a quarter through the book, and I was like, you know what? I just want to get through this. So I stayed up until 4 a.m. to finish it, and it definitely had my skin crawling at a couple points, definitely had a couple times oh my God, I knew it, or that's not what I thought at all, as a good book does. So I think if you're into the genre, just pick it up. It's really easy. It's a low commitment book, and I think it's pretty new. I don't have the book to actually the copyright date. I'll just put a thing of when it came out here. So if you've read it or want to read it, just leave your thoughts down below. Drop a comment. And if you have anything you think I should read, a good recommendation, let me know. We'll be happy to read it. I'm currently reading The Shining right now, which is long overdue, but I'm most of the way through it at this point, so I'm really excited to finish that. If you are going to recommend the Dark Tower series, it's on my list, and I'm really excited to read it, but I just haven't bought it yet. So, yeah. I used to read a lot as a kid. That was a big hobby and passion of mine. I would read constantly, probably to just escape from the world. But over the last few years, I found myself reading a lot less, and I end up just reading a lot of nonfiction books, which I still read a lot of. It's just usually more in audiobook format. Lately, for the past probably 6 months, reading with that childlike wonder and sort of addiction as before. So I've been reading a lot more. So drop a comment, let me know your thoughts, send this to somebody who is thinking about this book or looking for a book to read. And thanks for sticking around. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.